Hello, we are back again with another video on the RB25 Neo swapped S14. Basically this video is going to be doing some prep work. We've already seen the title though. So as far as the prep work for this one, we're going to be taking the Walbro 450 that I originally took out of the fuel tank and putting it back in. For the most part, I don't know if you guys have been watching from the beginning or if you're new to the channel and didn't see it. That's a pretty old video, but I originally took that Walbro out of the car and replaced it with a Walbro 255 pump. I did not know that the pump inside the car was a Walbro 450. I thought it was the factory pump, so I downgraded my fuel pump, but I kept this just in case. I blew that one. And since I did just blow that one, I'm gonna do what I gotta do to put that one back in. It is pretty cold out here, so that's one thing. The other thing is I have talked to a couple shops and I'm pretty much just getting the car ready to be taken to a shop. So I'm gonna replace the fuel pump so that it's able to run again. I don't know if I'm going to install the clutch line or not. I might leave that uninstalled, but no guarantees. It's mostly just getting it back to a running condition. I also have ordered a oil pressure gauge that I may be able to install beforehand as well. So we got those going. But for this one, it's specifically on the fuel. And I'm gonna set the camera up so it can record this area. Battery's already disconnected. My relay, I'll disconnect this too because it's also part of the system. So, and I'll just use this to remember where everything was. And then I'll leave those two connected since they go to that side. So let's go ahead and set this up. For starters, it's just the 4 10mm bolts on the top hat. The last bolt is behind my relay, and then that's that. You pull this off, there'll be 2 connectors connecting to the fuel pump assembly. Unplug those and then you're able to take this whole thing out. Right after you get those connectors undone and all those, you see you got the top hat, so you got those 3 hoses that are on there. Just need a flathead for those, and then there's the black ring around it. This ring twists to come out, so you got to remove those. Make sure you don't get anything crisscrossed or any of that stuff. The inlet hose is probably going to still have fuel in it. Keep that in mind. And yeah, that'll be that. So I'll show you how I do that one. After you get all that stuff off, just keep in mind that this one, I believe, is the inlet or the outlet hose. This one is the one that's gonna have the fuel in it. So the one that you disconnect from this one, I just like to keep it propped up so it doesn't spill. The rest of these are dry and good to go. But yeah, once you get all that stuff off, all the bolts, the rings, and that some type of retainer thing, this pulls up like so. You know, I have to move some of these hoses out the way. But this pulls up, and then there'll be wires attached to it at the bottom, as you can see. See if I can show you a little bit better. But yeah, you got all the wires and stuff. They're down there, and all the way in there. Let's see if I get some light on this. All the way down at the bottom of this, kind of like where that fuel is the actual fuel pump. I can't really get it in there for you to see. That's probably the best you're gonna get. So after that's all said and done, as you can see, that long tube is attached directly to this assembly right here, and that's where your fuel pump's gonna be. So yeah, it does take a little bit of finessing just to get it out. As you can see, it's pretty long. It goes all the way in there. It's at the bottom. So this is the fuel pump that's in question. The one that I threw in, the Walbro 255. Fuel filter, decent. Overall condition of it was pretty great. I just blew it up I just blew it up electrically. So what we'll be doing in the meantime is I'll be removing this and replacing it with the other one. Now for starters, with the other one, mind you, the old one was installed by the previous owner, so we're gonna clean this up a little bit. Unfortunately, I don't have any solder stuff here. But what I would be doing, we got basically facing this way. So what I would be doing is I'm gonna resolder these connections for power and ground, and that way I can make this a cleaner install, because I don't really trust that being the thing that provides fuel to the car. As for everything else, should be good, staying the same. And that's pretty much that with it. So I'll take this fuel pump home, resolder these connections, and then when I get back, I'll probably cut the wires here, solder them on, or cut the wires here, crimp them onto the edges of those, reinstall this pump in that same position, use this fuel filter over this one, because this one's newer and I don't know how old that one is, and we should be good after that. Test it, see if the car starts up. If not, then this fuel pump was faulty from the start and I'll have to order a new one. So hopefully it doesn't come to that, but if it does, then it does. This fuel pump was in the car when I first got it, so there's no telling if it worked or not, because I got it as a roller. So hopefully it works, but we'll end this off here today, just because I gotta take this home to solder it, and then when I come back, we'll pop this in, test it first by giving it power and ground to see if it primes, and then put it back in if it's back. Day 2, fuel pump. Let's get it going. Not that much left to do except for test these and swap over the pieces. So got this one back from home. Went ahead and soldered those pieces that you would have seen in the last clip. So those are good. Yeah. Let's go ahead and take a step into this little cramped space and basically compare this a little bit. I did the comparison on the last clip. More so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to confirm a couple things with this pump before I replace it with that pump while it's still out the tank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect those two connectors again and connect the relay again, and that way I can turn the key and actually physically look and see what this is doing. And if this still doesn't work, then okay, 100% confirmed this is faulty. Then I can install this pump and do the same test to see if this one primes as well. That way I'll know if this is faulty and I have to buy a new one before I even put it back in the tank. So that's pretty much what we're going to be doing real quick before we finish this install. So let's go get a relay and see if that does it. Even if it is the relay, we're still gonna leave this pump in because this one is better than that one. It's 450, that's a 255. So got back. This is the relay that I had in there. It looks fine on the outside and it was clicking, but it's very much possible that the switch could get stuck. So the load side will still make the click, but if the switch is stuck closed, then there you go. So I replaced that one. We got a brand new one in there already wired up. About to test it now. So you're gonna connect the battery power to the car, and you can hear that old Nissan chime letting you know that it's working. And this is either gonna work or it's not. So if switching out the relay for a new one works, then the relay was the problem at fault. If that does not work and it's not the pump, well, if the relay doesn't work and this pump is good, then that means that it's probably a fuse or something somewhere. But seeing as though the last pump is known good, if it wasn't the pump that was shorted, then that pump is still good, which means that this one should work. And if it's not the relay, then yeah, we got some fuses to look for. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put it on. Actually, I'm gonna wait for this train to go past so I can hear it now. So let's try it. Relay clicked, still nothing here. That's interesting. So I gave the fuel pump direct battery power and direct ground, or what should have been direct ground, and it still didn't work. So I'm thinking that there's another fuse, because from what I know, the way I wired this up is that the fuel pump will receive ground through the factory harness. It gets the signal to cut on from the factory harness, that's this wire, and then it gets grounded through that, because this is a ground side switch from the factory, if I believe correctly, and then it just switches the 12 volts straight into the fuel pump. So since the ground side switch probably was not working, I'm gonna have to pull up a diagram and see if there's another fuse in the OEM fuel block or OEM fuse block or something like that that may be blown, because this fuse is not blown. That's the one I put in for the power side. So now it's just time to check the ground side in the factory harness. Getting pretty confused, so I just checked all the fuses in this relay, or in that fuse block, and all the fuses in that fuse block, and no fuse has popped. And as far as I know, those are the only fuse blocks on the car ever since I've relocated it. So that one I'm not sure about. So I'm kind of narrowing it down this way. That's a brand new relay, and it clicks. So if it clicks, that means the load side is working. That means power is going into the load side, activating the coil in there, and grounding. This is the ground, so that means that the ground for the relay is good, and that means that it's getting activated by the ignition switch, which is the other side of the relay. It's supposed to supply that power to turn that relay on. So when I put it into the on position, it supplies the power that, energizes that coil, and then it's grounded here, and that causes it to click. So that means that the ignition circuit in the factory harness is good, and the ground for the relay is good. Outside of that, on the switch side of the relay, we have straight battery plus, which is fused. That fuse is okay. Is going into the relay and coming out and going into this black and yellow wire for the fuse pump, or fuel pump. I don't know why I keep saying fuse. For the fuel pump. So if the relay is clicking, then it's switching that switch, so power is at least getting to right here. This is supposed to go into the fuel pump top hat and into the pump itself. So if everything is working the way it's supposed to, then that means that the failure would have to be in the wiring from this point to this point. and at this point, these are good. I just made these, so it had to been something pre-existing, which means beyond this point up. So it'd be above here and below there, which means it could be anything here or anything here. All right, so it took me a little minute to figure this out, but here we go. So the fuel pump diagram, from what I was able to dig up, doesn't have a actual diagram. I've been able to piece this together from looking at multiple diagrams for other stuff that also have a piece of the fuel pump in it. So the first thing I got is that this connector T30 is one of the connectors on the top hat. That's where the fuel pump is supposed to ground through. And so that's a given. The other things, I've weeded out the other wires. So the green wire and the red and black or red and blue wire that are down there are for the fuel gauge and the fuel gauge warning lamps. The solid black wires are ground wires out for those systems, so all that stuff I can leave untouched. The black and yellow wire is the wire that I spliced into for the relay. That is supposed to be powered into the fuel pump. And so basically what you're looking at is something like this. If this is the fuel pump itself, you have the black and yellow wire going in, and then you have another wire coming out as ground. And this ground wire is what I am suspecting might be the issue. So now that I've weeded out those wires and I know what connector it grounds through, it should be easy to find which wire remaining is the ground wire for the fuel pump in the factory. Once I find that, I'll test that wire to see if it's good and then go from there. But if I can't get that to show anything false or anything wrong for whatever reason, I might just wire this fuel pump to a switch. The relay already makes that easy because we have straight battery power going into the relay and going out into the entrance or the inlet of power to the fuel pump. So that part is already set up. I would just have to change this from going through the factory wiring to a switch. So instead of going to the black and yellow wire through the factory harness, this would go to a switch and then 12 volts. That way 12 volts come in, switch it on, it activates the relay gives power to the fuel pump. I still will have to find a way to ground that ground wire, so when I go back out there and look at it, that ground wire is going to be the key to all of this, because we have to get this car running so that I can give it to the shop and they can look at it. Otherwise, I got to pay them more. I'm not really trying. Now that I'm back on the car with this diagram, it's pretty easy to figure this thing out. So here's what the diagrams won't tell you about the fuel pump, or at least I'll just make it very easy for everybody to understand. Factory fuel pump wiring for a 96 Nissan 240SX S14. As far as the pump itself, with the power and ground, you have a black and yellow wire, and it'll be this connector, the one with two plugs or two wires coming out of it. You have a black and yellow wire on the bottom. That is your battery power in to the fuel pump. This is a solid black wire on the back side. This is your ground going out. Those are the only two wires. Once they go through this connector, they come out on the other side, and they'll turn into these. So it's a red, and I don't know if you can see it, but it's a red and green wire. I don't know how to focus it in on that so that you can see it. Yeah, red and green. Red and green is ground. Solid red. Yep. Solid red is power. And you got that. And then you just splice those into your fuel pumps. As for my setup, I'm supposed to be checking this ground, so that's what I'm going to be doing real quick, just to look at it. One thing that I did notice was that there was a zip tie from the previous owner, I'm assuming, placed on this connector or connection, I guess, to keep pressure on it. It is not on there anymore. It could be as simple as that, but I'm going to start checking this stuff extensively and we'll go from there. Testing has led me here. Pulled out the fuse. So I'm using the voltmeter now to check powers and grounds, and everything was good, but I realized that it's not getting any power in, so I decided to check that. This fuse, as you can see, is good. If it will focus on it, it's good. It's an easy ID fuse. Even if it was popped, it's supposed to flash a diode. So I took the fuse out, tested the fuse itself, that checked out good. And this wire, as you can see, it follows into that yellow connector. Then it's that little red wire which goes right to a terminal. So at the terminal, you got the full 13. It's charging right now from my Lexus, but you know, you got the full battery voltage. This is supposed to be straight wire between here and that area. Now since the fuse is out, this is open, but with the fuse in, I still wasn't getting any voltage. And if I check on this side of the terminal for the fuse, where there is basically straight wire, we have no voltage. So I think something has happened either with this connector itself or with this wire, where for some reason between the terminal and there is not passing any voltage anymore. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this and see if I can figure it out from there. Now that I've disconnected this from the actual connector itself to see what this actual bare wire has, I take my, if I could do this in one hand, take the other end of my voltmeter and connect it to that. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this with one hand on camera. Nah, I'm not gonna be able to. But ever since I disconnected it from this and tested the edge of this connection, 13 volts are sitting here at this exact spot. So this connector itself is the failed component, and because of this, no start condition, fuel pump on prime, it's not getting power. So unfortunately, I don't think I have another one of these right now. I'm probably just gonna have to wire it straight together, which will leave it unprotected for the time being until I get, until I go grab another one of these to wire in. But we're gonna do that, see if it works, and then that'll solve this problem if it does. This is what I was talking about. So temporarily, I have connected those two sections of this piece without this piece because I'm pretty sure it broke somewhere in there and not the fuse itself. Now that that's connected, I can test here, and I'm showing battery voltage. If I can keep my hand steady, battery voltage, and because of that, that voltage goes through the rest of the wire, and we're down here at the relay where it's supposed to have that battery voltage, and we have battery voltage, which at first I wasn't getting any, so that might be the problem right there. I just blew that connector. So I'm gonna go ahead and reconnect this, and we're gonna see if it primes now, like right now. And if that's the case, then we'll throw it back in there. I'm still not upset because at the end of the day, if I didn't need a fuel pump, this one is still better than that one. So the fuel pump is set to prime in the on position. Let's hear it. And there we go. And we know that this fuel pump works now. We are good to go. Problem is solved. All right, let's put this thing back inside the fuel tank and call it a day. So I've done all the prep work, cleaned out the car and everything, so as of right now it's good to go. The only thing that I'll probably do today that it's time to move the car is just put the hood on. I'm gonna leave the headlights and stuff like that off, front bumper off, side skirts off, because it doesn't need all that. Just have the hood just in case it's not gonna be inside. But yeah, outside of that, there we go. that's pretty much it for now. In the future, I did order an oil pressure gauge kit for the car that should be here either tomorrow or Monday. The car is supposed to be going to the shop on Tuesday, so if that oil pressure gauge kit gets here first, then I will try to install that just to make it easier to diagnose the vehicle when the shop gets their hands on it. But if it doesn't come in time, then it'll go to the shop without it, and then I, install it whenever I get back, if I keep the car when it comes back, because we're at that point where it's either about to be on the road really soon or probably out of my hands pretty soon. So with that being said, I'll just say like, comment, subscribe, follow the build, see where it goes, see what happens. I'll keep you posted as I am posted, and until next time.